Okay, so why don't we get it going, make it official. Yeah, it is, I think. It is. Well, welcome. I know this is a big, exciting crowd in here. First of all, welcome to the folks who are here. Welcome to whoever may be online or who may be looking at this at later time. Certainly, those of you who are in the chat, in the YouTube, certainly feel free to drop your names in the chat so we know who you are. If you have questions, comments, feel free to put them in there. Mr. Rick Hardy is monitoring, and I'm sure he'll make us aware of anything really important that comes out of it. I want to thanks to St. Mary Parish for hosting us, and specifically Wanda Tui, who of course isn't in here right now. She's out doing the work back there for help setting it up, and of course Larry for working with us so that we could work right with the prayer of peace, which just seemed like a very natural fit for us to do. What I want to do is tell you about what we're going to do at this hopefully fairly brief meeting. I'm going to talk about sort of the state of the chapter, sort of where things are at, some things that are changed at the national level. We're going to have a financial report, a very extensive financial report with detailed graphs and charts, right, Ellie? Yeah, right, yeah. No, it won't be like that. Michelle is going to give a programs report. We're going to have a little recognition of outgoing board members, and then we're going to have board elections. And I will say that I was extremely optimistic that we didn't need paper to do a board election. It's like, I'm going to tell you the names, and hopefully you're going to all just say, yes, it's a great idea. So with that, the state of the chapter. It has obviously been a difficult 15 months in particular for pretty much everybody, whether you're in church music, not in church music. It's been kind of a tough road to hoe. We're coming out of it. There's definitely light, the tunnel we can see, and it's not an oncoming train, so I think we feel pretty good about that. But to talk about some of the difficulty, the last time that we gathered in person was February 24th of 2020. It was our last member meeting, and it happened just weeks before things shut down. And for those of you who get Pastoral Magazine, I'm going to quote myself from this one just came out. There were some chapter directors, there are 8 of us who meet every 6 or 8 weeks to talk about things, and we were asked to identify some issues. And some of the things that I specifically noted is that I don't think we've done, even though we've done a lot of events, and you'll hear about those, I don't necessarily think it's been good for us because number one, it's Zoom, and I think there's just a huge Zoom fatigue. Even for someone like me, I'm retired, so I don't have to go to like Zoom meetings every day, but honestly, just meeting with people all the time over Zoom just does not do it for me. And as I noted in another question is that all of our events have a social aspect to them. Just as this does tonight. I mean, we're going to be out of here in 20, 30 minutes, and we're going to be going outside and enjoying ourselves. And that has been completely absent, which just makes it really, really difficult on the chapter. The one positive, I think, it has sparked some video innovations. Despite the Zoom fatigue, there are some things we know we can do now with video. And I think one of the things I'm looking forward to is Deacon Dennis told us that the diocese is set up in their conference room to use video so that we can have meetings where maybe not everybody's going to be in the room, most of us perhaps, but some of us might be remote and can still come in. And I'm looking forward to that because I think it will open up some things for the leadership of the organization to our membership. There have been membership changes at the national level, as you may be aware. I think we talked about it maybe in the May issue. Basically now there is no more local chapter membership. You belong to the national, and when you belong to the national, you select a local chapter. You're normally assigned one based on where you're at. If you're in a parish or in a location that does not have a chapter, then you can select a nearby chapter. And I've selected a nearby chapter for a couple of you who happen to be listed outside of the Grand Rapids Diocese. Basically, what they did at the national level is they have what they call a basic membership, which I think is $39 a year. It's very limited, but it's to give people a taste of what okay, don't go off on me. It's just a taste of what the national organization can offer and what you can get from the local chapter. So that's the basic level. I think the standard level is maybe $119 a year, and that's for most of your musicians, music directors. I believe what they call the premium level is what used to be for members of the DMMD, and that I think is $169 a year, and there's more privileges and more premium benefits that are associated with that. But the bottom line is the national is attempting to become a national organization of local chapters, as opposed to a national organization that puts on an event once a year and then has a bunch of chapters who sort of act in its name. I think they're trying to look for much greater cooperation and collaboration. It started under Steve Petronak, and it has continued now under the direction of the board and the new executive director, Jennifer Kluge. I'm not sure how her last name is pronounced. Anyway, so that's it. Currently, the national has about 50 members listed for the Grand Rapids Diocese. I went through and selected a few because they had misassigned some people to other areas. I myself was assigned to the Lansing Diocese for reasons I certainly do not know, but in any event, that's been taken care of. We talked a little bit about some of the positive, negative trends in the last year, and I think both the video stuff has been both a positive and it's been a negative because it's carried us away from being together in person. I think a larger negative thing, and I don't want to be the downer about it, but what I see in the organization is just aging leadership, and we need more new, fresh ideas, different leadership coming in. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we want people to come in, they have to take over whatever. They just need to be part of the organization, actively moving it forward. And that's going to happen at the chapter level, but that's going to be something that's going to be an ongoing thing. I mean, we've talked about it for a long time, but we need to do something about it because we do have quite a number of young people who have taken positions in the diocese. I mean, Aquinas is cranking out people on a pretty regular basis, and it seems like the majority of them stay in the Grand Rapids area. Darn that Ben Koval for going to Lansing, but suffice to say, we do have an influx of young persons in there, and I do think there's an opportunity. We're just going to have to try harder to reach out to them because we're not all going to be around forever. And even if we were going to be around forever, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. And I think an organization needs to be a continued renewal, and renewal comes with new people, new ideas. So that's kind of sort of my brief take on what I see the state of the chapter is. I think we're not in a terrible place, but we definitely have got work to do. So with that, the next thing on our agenda here is the financial report. So Eileen, can you come up and give us all your detailed information?
Hello, everybody. I am Eileen, treasurer, for 2 more weeks. My detailed report will be less than 50 words, less than 100 words. We are in good financial shape at this time and pretty much the same position we were at the time that we closed down, at the time where we had the lockdowns. So our totals for our general fund is $3,537.99. And then our special events fund is $1,694.06. So we are optimistic that we have this cushion to help us find our way since we are not going to be receiving local dues anymore, we receive, and Brian has the details, we receive a percentage of the money that people send in for their national membership, which is going to significantly change the way we receive our income. So right now, the way it looks is once we start really ramping up, we can continue to offer our programs with kind of a foresight on how to wayfind things, so we can continue to offer the programs and figure out how we're going to change the way we get our money. So, thank you very much. Was that less than 100 words?
Thanks, Eileen. And as Eileen referenced, we will be receiving a percentage of dues back from the national office. It's 15% of dues paid from members that are assigned to Grand Rapids, and those will come twice a year. But honestly, for the next, I think, 18 to 24 months, we are really going to be feeling our way around, and I think the national office is too. I think just from the chapter directors that I've talked to, everybody's got a lot of uncertainty about how it's going to work for them. Next up on the agenda, Michelle, to talk about programs.
Thanks, Brian. So, we've had 15 months of no in-person events. We had to cancel last year's gathering at Salvatore's, which I was personally looking forward to, and our annual August picnic at Johnson Park, because as Brian said, one of our pillars is fellowship and gathering. And so that's been a difficult time for all of us in so many ways. But we've moved to Zoom gatherings with all its pluses and minuses. We've had COVID and singing updates. We had Dr. Mark Webb with us, and we had check-in calls with Deacon Dennis Rubicki from the Diocesan Music Office. The musician's blessing was held virtually with a message from Bishop Wolkowiak. We had a 9-week series of plenum addresses and workshops that were drawn from the 2020 NPM convention, and we may have some potential for that this year as well. We had a celebratory 12th night party on Epiphany from the comfort of our own homes. We also did the Journey from Lent to Easter in March, musically and with scripture and readings. And Alleluia is our song in April, which was Easter readings and music, where we had people from various parishes contributing music, because one of the things is when we're doing music in our own parishes, we never get to enjoy and celebrate with musicians from other parishes and their presentations and their praying of music. So that's been a gift in many ways. Also, this evening's prayer, the prayer of peace in the spirit of Tuesday, has been successfully combined as a video event with limited in-person attendance during this past year. But looking forward, we hope that we will have in-person events with the potential of making them, as Brian said, in-person, as well as being able to watch online, which that could be a gift if you're up north and it's, say, February. But we will have the blessing of musicians in person at the cathedral this September with Bishop Wolkowiak. And we know we will be co-hosting a service of remembrance for all those who have died from COVID this past year, and that'll be at the cathedral sometime in November. We hope to reintroduce skills sessions and hymn sings as we continue to come out of the pandemic. And as always, if you have suggestions, please share them with our board anytime, or you can put them in the chat tonight that Rick is monitoring as we go. That's programs. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Anybody have any questions for Michelle? No questions? None coming in there? Okay. The next thing I wanted to do is a recognition of outgoing board members, because we have some people who will have served on the board but will not be returning to the board in the coming year, and we want to make sure we recognize them. First up, this is alphabetical. Bob Battistini, who has been on the board, he served 2 years as a member at large, 4 years as the chapter director, which won't happen in the future since we wrote our bylaws that way, and then 4+ years as the newsletter editor. So at least 10 years in here. So Bob, thank you very much for your service. And it was suggested that we should give Bob some title, like some senior advisor, senior industry advisor, or something like that. And it's like, I think Bob will be there if we call and ask him a question, but I don't think he wants to be tied down to anything that where he actually has to go to a meeting. So next on the list here is Therese Jandernoa, who has been our prayer coordinator for the last 3 years. Therese is not here tonight. But one of the things Therese mentioned is we're adding a member at large who is a person that Therese is working with at St. Patrick in Portland. And Therese says it'll be 2 for the price of 1 because she'll probably sit in on some of the meetings and will certainly advise James as he goes along. But Therese has served for 3 years. Next up is Gordon Prue, who has served, at least according to my records, 2 years as a member at large, 1 year with, I think, Sister Catherine as prayer coordinator, 2 years as chapter director, 2 years as treasurer, 2 years as membership coordinator. Gordon is obviously either a man of many talents or he cannot hold a job, one or the other. But Gordon, thank you very much. The next 2 people are going to have to hear about this on the recording because they're actually outside doing some work. Sherry Prue has served 2 different terms on the board, totaling 5 years as a member at large, and as well as serving 2 years formally as the hospitality coordinator. And I think my recollection is that informally, when we didn't have a hospitality person, she kind of stepped in and did a lot of the hospitality stuff. So, Sherry, we thank you. And then last but certainly not least, only because of the alphabet, Wanda Toohey, who has served for 5 years as the recording secretary. So we appreciate the work she has done on behalf of the chapter. So Sherry and Wanda, we thank you. Next up are actual board elections. And again, I didn't supply any paper because basically what I'm going to say is I'm going to read the names and then I'm going to say, everybody agree? Okay? And if you don't, then somebody else can go get some paper and scrap them. We can write it out. But so the order of succession in the chapter is that we have a chapter director-elect. Currently, that is Rick Hardy. So on July 1st, Rick Hardy will be the chapter director. And at that time, I will become the immediate past chapter director, which means basically I just give him whatever advice he asks for or just twiddle my thumbs, something like that. There are 3 positions for which there are currently no candidates. So if you're hearing this, it's certainly something to think about. You can contact myself, you can contact Rick, but our programs position, which is pretty important, I think might be the kind of position where a couple people can share the responsibility. Our treasurer position will be open. We might not quite let Aileen off the hook in the next couple weeks. We'll sort something out there. And then hospitality is also open. The remainder of the positions, recording secretary, Barbara Witham McCarger will be the recording secretary. Kathleen Lally will be the newsletter editor. Larry Barton will handle publicity. Aileen Snoink will handle membership. Michelle Ogren will handle prayer. Our 2 members at large will be Carol Fedewa, if you may know her from St. Alphonsus, and let's see, I got to make sure I pronounce this right, James Tavadze from St. Patrick in Portland. James will be new to the board. He has sat in on the last couple meetings. We're very encouraged. Jordan Malone will continue as, what did you say, a 6th-year senior? So Jordan will continue as a student member, and then hopefully that will be, as Larry talked about, like a gateway drug. Hopefully that'll be a gateway to luring him into something else. So there are also, just so you know, there are 2 ex officio members of the board, and that would be Matt Jacobison, who's over here, as the cathedral musician, and Deacon Dennis Rybicki, who is the diocesan director of music. So that basically is the board as it has been proposed. And at this point, I would simply ask for your affirmation. If you're in agreement, please say yes. Okay, is there anyone who's in disagreement? Is there anyone in the chat that wants to volunteer for one of those open positions? Or not so far? Okay, it's too late then. They'll have to add. Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So that concludes the portion of the meeting that I wanted to deal with. I know we're going to be going outside, but before we do that, I wanted to introduce Rick Hardy to anybody who doesn't know him. Probably, I think all of you do. But Rick, say what you need to say.
Well, speaking of aging leadership, this is what you get. I'm really honored to be invited to take this role. As you know, as you may know, I don't have a long history here. I was here in the diocese for several years, ending in 2015. I had the honor and pleasure of serving along with the great Mary Cusack and also with the great Dennis Rybicki as a three-part chair team of the NPM convention here in Grand Rapids, and it was a great pleasure to be involved in that. I will always resent Nick Palmer for thinking of the term tri-chariot for the three of us before I did, but it was a great experience. And then, like all people who move from Michigan to Phoenix and then move back to Michigan, which they all do, then they all also move back to Phoenix again. So then I did that, and now back here again, back at home in Michigan. I grew up in Bay City, and working at St. Peter's in Douglas. Fortunately, the outgoing board, by some kind of a vote, gerrymandered our parish into the chapter. I actually live south of 32nd Street in Holland, so that's technically just outside, you know, but I can see it from there. And working with... I know, that's true. So that kind of makes it okay as well. But on the subject of aging leadership, and to expand on what Brian said, one of the things that I hope we accomplish this year is to figure out how to open leadership and open the idea of leadership to people that are about half my age. Baby boomers are known for a couple of things. Number one, we have no idea how old we are. Number two, we never retire because we like what we're doing usually. And three, we can be seen as set in our ways. But I want to invite, urge, cajole, beg, plead with those who are half my age, which gives you a lot of room, to be in dialogue and to find people who will be in dialogue about what leadership looks like for generation or two behind us, and form the chapter in a way that invites and makes room for younger people. In this past year, we all learned some stuff that we didn't all know how to do before. We all learned whether we were 70 or 7, we learned how to get on and off of a Zoom meeting, and although we're kind of tired of it, we learned some stuff about that. And as you said earlier, we learned how to do some things that we hadn't ever thought of before. And that's not even the beginning of what can happen. So I think one of the, as you've heard already, the task of our chapter this year and next will be, in order to keep the history and the greatness of this chapter moving forward, will be to find a way to admit and encourage young people into leadership roles. And if you are such a person, if you are one of the younger folks that I'm talking to, please find a way to be heard. Please find a way to get in and try the second time if the first way doesn't work, and we will all try to be aware. We have got to be open to finding new ways to do this. Grand Rapids is one of the great chapters in the country of the NPM, and it'll be a great honor to be part of it. This year, we will have to work collaboratively because I do not know a lot of history here. I do not know everybody in town like most of you do, but I'm eager to get to work and eager to work together. Thank you very much for the opportunity, for the trust and taking the chance.
Okay, that concludes our program. Were there any questions, comments, anything like that before we wrap it up and shut off the video and say goodbye to all the video people? Or right. Yeah, well, we can stand here and. Okay. Absolutely, donations are a possibility, and I think one of the other things the chapter will be looking at are other ways that will encourage support, some quid pro quo for services that we can do. Yeah, no question. Yes, Bob? Hmm. Yeah, yeah, there's no question. We can be as creative as we want to, and trust me, the chapter directors that I've spoken to are basically from all around the country, are all looking at different ideas and who they can bring in and what they can charge and what they can do for this and that. So, yeah, those are a lot of conversations that the board will need to have. Okay, any other questions? That's it, okay. Well, with that, I think the weather has all cleared. I think the rain all went that way, and so we should be able to go outside and have a good time. So let's do that. Okay, great.